Hey everyone, Larry Walsh here for Changing Channels, and wow, the world has changed. The tariffs that have been imposed by the Trump administration has really turned the world upside down. The global trading order that we have known and have become quite familiar with for the past 40 years is now gone. It's over. And as of this recording, the tariffs have been put on a 90-day pause. So most of the world is just dealing with a universal 10% tariff on goods being imported by the US. Everyone except for China and a few other places. And China is dealing with massive tariffs now, trying to isolate their economy. While we're in this pause, though, it's giving businesses an opportunity, particularly technology and channel partners, an opportunity to figure out, well, what comes next. So even though we're in a pause, we're still dealing with an immense amount of uncertainty. We don't really know what's going to happen 90 days from now. We don't even know what's going to happen after that, and whether or not these tariffs and these trade war will continue on in perpetuity. This causes a lot of problems for businesses. If you're unable to plan, if you don't have an expectation about what's going to come next, then it's hard to make investments. It's hard to take risks. It's hard to set prices, and it's also hard to enable partners to set prices and deal with incentives. So we decided that we would invite a friend of Channelnomics to come talk about it, somebody who's been dealing with this since 2017 when the first Trump tariffs were imposed. The company is Plugable, and their CEO, Lynn Smurthwaite-Murphy, has joined us because she deals with this consistently. Plugable, a provider of peripheral products based in the US. Lynn is a Canadian and lives and works out of Canada. And most of Plugable products come from Asia. And until the 2016, 2017 tariffs came into place, most of it came out of China, and they made the decision to move to other countries, mostly to other countries. So we're going to talk with Lynn about how Plugable is dealing with not just the tariffs, but the uncertainty that comes with it and how to plan and what comes after it. This is Changing Channels. I'm Larry Walsh. Let's get into it. So welcome to Changing Channels, Lynn Smurthwaite-Murphy.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, it's good to
Delighted to
have
be
you.
here.
Yeah. So you're joining us now you're in London,
London,
Ontario, right?
that's correct.
Excellent. So how are things in the 51st state?
I must have blinked and missed that.
Oh, no, we've renamed it. I'm checking, let me check my notes here. Yeah, it's now called North America. So
Well, you know what? Then we must have negotiated really hard, which means the US is probably turning to metric. You're going to be pouring maple syrup all over everything, and you got to start saying oot and a boot.
Boot in a boot. Yeah, I'll remember that as I'm drowning French fries in poutine or whatever you call
Maple
that.
syrup now.
Yeah, really. It's like,
Yeah,
well, no, can you afford it? Because you did have that maple syrup heist a few years ago.
that's right. Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
gone up in price.
To me, this is still the wonder. It's like here in the US, we have a strategic oil reserve. In Canada, you had a strategic maple syrup reserve. I was like, who
We have our
knew?
priorities straight.
Absolutely. Hey, before we get into our conversation, for those who aren't familiar with Plugable, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your company?
Sure. Well, I've been in the channel. Well, I'm almost embarrassed to say it's coming on 40 years. I started out at a service provider, Bell Canada, actually. And then I went to a distributor, and I was at Westcon Comstore for 18 years through so many interesting changes. And then I went to another vendor, and I started doing some consulting, and I've been with Plugable now for the last 4 years. Plugable is an interesting company. The founder, it's founded in Redmond, Washington, and the founder is still involved in the company as the CTO. He was an executive at Microsoft and IBM, software engineer by trade, DisplayLink as well. And Plugable makes computer peripherals for the modern office. So we enable the modern office with the likes of docking stations and other USB-C adapters and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a great company, great products. We use them here at Channelnomics, so I can attest to it. Yeah,
That's fabulous.
yeah. You know, the reason why we have you on though is that
Mhm.
you are not in a unique position, but you are rather unique in just in the way that you personally. So as you noted, Plugable is an American company founded in Washington State. You are Canadian, so you're operating out of north of the border. Or did I
Mhm.
say out or out? So
Yeah, that's right. It's good practice. You
I
can
am
say
going to,
oot.
yeah. So when you take over, we'll be looking forward to it. Just give me my universal health care. Um, but you're also do a lot of manufacturing overseas, like everybody else does, and you have. And I don't mean to mischaracterize this in a negative way, but you're also dealing with a commodity product. Is that there is a ton of peripherals and docking stations and adapters and all the things that make the desktop work in the modern day, but they're not necessarily unique. It's a matter of quality over quantity. And so this puts Plugable at a very interesting. I was going to say crossroads, but it's more like a clover leaf of intersections and colliding traffic. And when you're dealing with supply chains and tariffs, and also the natural tensions that are coming with it. What's the past few weeks been like for you in your company?
Oh, the past few weeks have been, you know what, it's been the past number of years.
Mm.
We've been on a crazy ride with, first we had the first set of tariffs came in 2016, right? And then the pandemic, which caused a huge boom. And there were component shortages and constraint everywhere. And then we went to oversupply when everything became available, industry wide liquidation. We've literally all just cleared through that. And now the last couple of weeks have been really unprecedented with, these the changing and changing literally daily. So it's been challenging to navigate.
I can appreciate that, although I'm not quite sure I'd use challenging as the right word. The conversations that we've been having with people like yourself around the world has been we can deal with the tariffs, we can't deal with the uncertainty. And for a company like yours, which is really built around a global supply chain, how are you coping with the uncertainty? We don't know. I mean, look, in February, in Canada, you were hit with a 20%, 25% tariff that then went away. And then last week, you were hit with the tariff again, and now that's
Mhm.
gone away. And it's supposed to come back in 90 days. But your source of product is now being hit with 145% tariff. And so but we don't even know where that's going to end up. So how do you deal with all of that?
Well, you know what? Luckily, 8 years ago, when the first tariffs came out, we realized, and before I got here, the company was smart enough to realize that it would be catastrophic if a trade war were to take place and most of our goods were coming from China. So we spent the next 8 years doing really, really hard work, moving 90% of our goods outside of China. So that seems like it was a really good move.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of days ago, it didn't matter because where we're producing, Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan, and some in China, they were all hit. So yeah, it's you you have to break it down. It's so complicated. First off, you have to understand each product, what it's made of, what the stacking tariffs are. And then at the first thing we did was, okay, let's understand what we've got here in North America. You have to protect that because that inventory is suddenly undervalued, or it's worth more. and then to replace it. So we had to go into war room mode, and we had to look at now what have we got on order, what have we got on the boat coming over, because that suddenly, if it landed in North America, in the U.S., we would have had to pay instant tariffs that were one-way door. And so we immediately started looking at bonded warehouses or foreign trade zones. So yeah, there was it just didn't panic. You just had to break down the information and step by step deal with what you had to deal with. We had to raise some of our prices right away. We had to get a hold of our suppliers, tell them to hold on what hadn't, or we airshipped some goods that were ready that would have beat the tariffs. So we've been busy.
It sounds it. It sounds
Yeah.
it. All right. So just for clarity's sake, and I presume that the people who watch this podcast are informed and understand what tariffs are, but you said something that I want to make sure that people do hear. You would have had, if your product had landed in Seattle or Portland or Long Beach, you would have paid the tariff. In other words, the American company, the one that's doing the importing, is the one that's paying the tariff.
That is correct, upon landing.
Right.
So, imagine if you've got, $10 million that's coming in, and all of a sudden, on average, you owe a third. If it's Chinese goods, on average, you owe over 100%. Imagine the cash flow impact, the risk, because what's going to happen to run rates? What's going to happen to the market when the prices go up that high? So we were relieved to see the 90-day pause, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you're not the only one who this the similar that has a similar story. Is that the 2017 tariffs that went into place that were punitive towards China did cause a number of companies to move their manufacturing or move their sourcing to other countries, Vietnam being one of them. But Vietnam, even though we're in that pause now, it does look like they are going to take a pretty substantial hit. Do you feel that you got enough of a runway out of that move, or that this has turned your strategy sideways unnecessarily?
Um, I'm not sure I understand the question. So you're talking specifically about Vietnam?
Well, I mean, in terms of moving, because the strategy was moving manufacturing out of China to avoid those tariffs. And now that
That's
you've
right.
moved them out, you've had them that way now for a number of years. Was it enough of a payoff to say, okay, now we can make another adjustment?
Um, well, I guess time will tell. I mean, it hasn't been enough until now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's just the Chinese tariffs and the other tariffs are 10% or they negotiate less, then this will have turned out to be a very good move and will put us at a competitive advantage until many of the competitors can move their goods. And I was just doing some analysis this morning, and of course you've got AI and deep research, and it looks like the top 10 OEM docks that are sold in the channel, 70% of those are made in China. And then a number of our competitors, at least 40 or 50% of their docks are made in China. So if in 90 days Vietnam isn't slapped with a large tariff, or Taiwan, Thailand, then that will have been a good move. If not, the whole industry will be in the same boat.
Yeah. Is moving manufacturing to the U.S. an option? Or how does the economics work out on that? I'm sure you've done the analysis in that too.
Well, that is a very complicated move. I mean, to really return this type of product back to North America, um, you have to have the whole ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have the chips back yet. That's been a 5-year endeavor, and we're still nowhere near. But you have to have a whole ecosystem around that, of all the raw materials and all the suppliers. Then you've got to have the capability and the skill set. And that skill set has been long gone from North America. So it's going to take one of the big OEMs to bring back manufacturing and to drive it back. Now, if nobody knows what's going to happen and it's changing every day or every 3 months, that's a long-term investment that somebody's got to feel really confident that with certainty that this is the long-term plan. And I think that's where dealing with uncertainty, I don't see industries investing unless there's certainty.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, then I think that that's ultimately the problem here with this type of blanket tariffs is that, or I shouldn't say the tariffs themselves aren't necessarily the problem. It's the inability to plan and anticipate what comes next. Is like, if I make this bet, will this bet pay off a few years down the road, and or am I going to be faced with another Sophie's choice, if you will, of like, oh, I have to uproot and move again, or do we just absorb the prices? I want to pivot to that though, because you do sell through partners, you sell through marketplaces as well. What's this? What's the impact all this is having on your channels? How are you then translating this uncertainty as well as cost through your partners and ultimately onto your customers?
Well, it's still fairly fresh. We raised the prices when we thought everything was going to be 40, 45, 35, 30%. We raised the prices immediately. And now we're backing them off just today, actually, on all the ones that are depending on the country of origin. Um, so far, our sales have not declined. But I would imagine that a 50% or 40% increase would pause any budget, right? So, and I know we aren't the only ones. We were told that most manufacturers were raising prices, and they've been raising. We can see it on Amazon too. We can see our competitors raising. So, industry wide, most of the prices will go up, and budgets won't go as far. Um, it's already been a tough couple of years on the channel. And so I think this will be tough.
So you've already raised prices and now you're rolling them back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's got to be equally confusing to
Yeah.
your partners as much as your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard to know what to do. But it takes time to roll pricing through the whole system, through the whole omni-channel. So we had to act quickly because goods were coming in that were going to be at a higher price, and you've got to balance that.
So luckily, though, I mean, this was a week. You know, the let's just remind everybody, the tariffs that were here to stay lasted a week.
Mm-hmm.
But in that week's time, you actually had to ramp up prices and then pull them back. And fortunately, it doesn't. From if I'm hearing you correctly, you're not seeing any impact on sales. But I would imagine the concern in your war room would be that if this keeps happening, this yo-yo effect keeps happening, it will have an impact.
Oh, it absolutely will. Yeah. I mean, most of our goods are, if at all, they're going to go up now, maybe 10%, unless their country of origin is China.
Mm.
So, but there's a lot of goods that are made in China in our own industry, and that is going to have a huge impact.
How are you communicating this down to your partners? Are you equipping them? Are you providing them with material or guidance on how to communicate this to their customers? Because ultimately, like, you're a consumer, I'm a consumer. We're we are no matter how much we talk about value, we're always going to be somewhat price sensitive relative to our budgets. So how is it that you're arming your partners to deal with this ebb and flowing of information?
Well, it's right now. It's really just we're not the only ones. We call them and they say, "Yeah, yeah, I know. You're the fifth call I've had today. I get it." So, um, I don't think we have to equip them because we're not the only ones. But we have been transparent, calling them, and the channel's been great. I mean, they've been responding very quickly, and they understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things you also deal with is the benefits and the detriments of selling through marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one thing that I have to give it to the TikTokers that they have done a fabulous job of pointing out the ills of drop shipping. So you go on Amazon and you can find any number of lookalike products with different brands on them and different price points, and it's all just based out of some factory over in China that's making stuff and dumping it into the market. But you're also a somebody who, Plugable actually deals with that as well. I mean, there's a plethora of competing low cost brands made out of Asia. Some of them are copycats, some of them are just, replicas of what people need. Do these tariffs actually have a moderating effect because it is putting more attention on pricing and more attention on value?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it will. I'll go backwards for a moment. So, well, first off, we were born on Amazon, so we're a digital native, and our target customer are prosumers and the B2B buyers, and typically it's the help desk manager or the IT manager who's buying on behalf of multiple users, right? So they have to think about that. Um, so yeah, when we were founded in 2009, it was largely American sellers, and fast forward to today, where it's over 60% of the sellers on Amazon are Chinese, and those aren't even including the ones that have established American presence. So I think it's even more than that. Then you had the pandemic, right, and the tariffs that started to brands were moving outside of China. So you had this glut of factory floor. Um, During the pandemic, everyone ramped up. So you had all this production capacity. And so what do they do with it? They've got all this extra excess capacity and goods. They have to sell them as brands, factory brands on Amazon. So yeah, there was a ton of extra. We call them 5-character brands, and you'll know what I mean if you go on Amazon. You'll see 5-character brands popping up, and it's not to say that they're poor quality, but they're making decisions based on price because they're competing on a marketplace, and so component material decisions are made around price. Where when we make our decisions, it's around compatibility and the broadest range of compatibility. Doesn't mean it means our components tend to be a little bit more expensive. So yeah, we're competing with that, and it's been challenging. And there's been a lot of opportunity for cheating. Might be a strong word, but definitely beneficial. These companies have benefits that American brands don't. So to come around to your question, these new tariffs at 145% and versus ours at 10% definitely even the playing field if they stick, and who knows if they will.
Well, the other change that's happened is the elimination of the $800 exception. So the
Yes.
goods that are coming in, and apparently, didn't know at first. Prior to all this, I didn't know that there was this $800 exception. So any goods coming in under eight or orders coming in under $800 in value don't face the same levies as bulk shipments do. And apparently, that's a lot of how a lot of these drop shippers are operating. They're coming in under that to avoid the tariffs that are in place. Does that help you? Is that going
Oh,
to actually?
absolutely. I mean, again, those we don't compete on Shein and Temu and Hall, but that's where it's really going to make play out. But yes, there was there were a lot of companies that were landing goods just outside of the U.S. and then shipping them in under the $800, and yeah, that's why you would get them at prices where we just couldn't compete.
So looking at the climate going forward, what role do you see your partners now playing into driving your, ordinarily I'd be talking about growth, but given the circumstances, you know us, Canada, Europe, it doesn't matter where you are right now. We're all pretty much looking down the barrel of recessionary conditions. So, what role do you see your partners playing in helping to maintain your stability, your viability?
The role of the partner, they, the partners, the type of goods that we sell, as you mentioned earlier on, it's lower ASP and it can be commodity. And you've got a channel account manager who's sometimes repping 100 brands. And how do they become an expert? So how can we help them is make it so that it's really easy for their customer to find what they need. And if they don't find it the first time, how do we help them? We have a compatibility guarantee. We'll make it work. So we know, I think we're realistic about where we fit in the channel and what role we play. And we try to make it really easy and painless for both the customer and the channel partner. So we want access digitally to their customers, because you brought it up at GTDC last year. Your research showed there's a change in demographics, right? And that the new younger demographic definitely prefers digital research, digital purchasing, and that's where we play really well. So I think the channel, the investments they're making in their digital workbenches and all of the digitization, that's great for us.
So, Lynn, I want to finish on this because I think it's an important question for somebody who is with as much experience as you. So, I was talking with a friend of mine, a CEO of a company, who was telling me his job is not to say what's happening today; it's to anticipate what's going to happen a few years down the road. So, thinking about this for Plugable and your go-to-market strategies amid all of everything we know today, where do you see you and your company a couple of years down the road from now?
Well, you have to sort what you can control and what you can't control, right? And I think we made a good decision when we looked at the macro conditions and decided that there was going to be a trade war between China and the US. And so we didn't want to be a victim of that. But mostly we need to understand the changing needs of our customers and the changing technologies and make sure that we're providing viable solutions that are relevant. If we fail to do that, then we don't even get to play in the crazy world that we're in right now. So I think, I was thinking about how to navigate all of this. And we've had a multi-year plan where we've been very clearly moving to an omni-channel brand. And we've been moving more to B2B. Our customers are taking us there too. But it's helped having a North Star and being really clear on where we're going and who we serve and why we're serving them. Keep some of the noise out of the broader team.
Lynn, it's a pleasure speaking with you. It's as always, and I look forward to hearing more about what you and Plugable are doing in the future. And I dare maybe someday I will learn the metric system.
That's a challenge for you.
Something base 10. Sure, we'll go with it. Anyways, Lynn,
Yeah,
thanks for joining us here on Changing Channels.
I totally enjoyed it.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Changing Channels. I want to thank our guest, Lynn Smurthwaite-Murphy, the CEO of Plugable, for joining us and sharing her insights on tariffs and planning around uncertainty. And I also want to thank all of you for joining us. We do Changing Channels to help inform and enlighten the channel community on issues that are of importance to everyone. This issue of tariffs and trade wars, this is probably going to be the most significant issue that we're going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future, which is why Channelnomics has redrafted and published its Channel Recession Survival Guide. You can find it. It's available to everyone on channelnomics.com, as well as other analysis and insights on tariffs, the trade wars, and what this all means to technology companies and the channel itself. If you like what we're doing here at Changing Channels, please hit like, hit subscribe, share with your friends, and check out our other podcasts in the margins as well as the network effect. Until next time, I'm Larry Walsh.